Oh, hi. Welcome, low ego action heroes. I was distracted there for a moment. This is Debbie Levitt from DeltaCX.com. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy and agency. I still haven't updated our website, but check us out. And, hey, welcome to Tuesday, office hours. Can you believe it's September, end of September already? Where has the time gone? Unbelievable. So anyway, I am here for the next hour to answer your questions. I like to think of it as group live mentoring. Hi, Anna. How are you doing? I love the comment you left on the video with Jan. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, as always, we want to thank everybody who has been donating through the YouTube channel. People are giving $3 to $10 American dollars per month as part of the YouTube membership. Hi, Raphael. And thanks to everybody for keeping me in streaming software and delicious chocolate chips. I was thinking of all of you today because my shipment of chocolate chips came. So, yeah, I order them by the 2.5 kilogram bag on Amazon. So it's really a thing. I'm not joking. Hi, Shagun. I don't know if I'm pronouncing you correctly. You adopted a dog. Anna, tell us more. Everybody knows I am a super dog mom. And these are my 5. And if you're following them on Instagram, you know they escaped today and they just came back. So thanks to my dogs for coming back. Hello, LinkedIn user. Sorry it's not giving me your name, but thank you for watching. So if you would like to ask a question, all questions are welcome. You can always go to deltacx.com/links. There's a link there to send your question in anonymously, since some people like to talk about their jobs. You can ask it here in the chat. I'm monitoring YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Twitch. Hey, Janice. And if you send a question outside of this show, I queue it up so that you are one of the first to be answered next Tuesday. Now, we were supposed to have, hi, Raphael's dog. We were supposed to have a special guest today, but unfortunately he wasn't feeling well. He lost his voice, so we've rescheduled him for about a month from now, and that was Varun from Apple and Banana. So I'm sorry that we've been promoting him being on today's show, and then he's had to call in sick. Do you do this every week for free? Is it always on Wednesdays at this time? No, because today is Tuesday. So yes, all of my shows are at this time, which is 6:30 p.m. Italy. Be careful when there's daylight savings time. If you're not in Europe, then we change clocks on different days, and sometimes people go, hey, wait a minute, you're starting an hour early or an hour later. Daylight savings throws it off, but if you go by Italy time, or we've got a Google Calendar, you can add our Google Calendar to your Google Calendar, and then you will know. So go to deltacx.com/links, and all the links are there. But yes, I do office hours every Tuesday, sometimes alone, sometimes with a special guest to answer questions with me. Will I be able to find this video after the live? Always, always on YouTube. LinkedIn makes it so hard to find content later. You ever look for someone's post later and you're like, F this, I give up? #UX. So yeah, you can always find everything on our Delta CX YouTube channel. Please subscribe there, and everything is organized into playlists. So all of the office hours are in an office hours playlist. They always have the date on them, and so that'll be available later. Yes, every week Tuesday is office hours, Ask Me Anything. Wednesdays are usually lessons or an interview or an article discussion. Mondays are usually Think Out Loud. Thursdays I usually take off from streaming. And Fridays we do critical thinking. So I'm usually here 3 or 4 days a week at 6:30 p.m. Italy time. Yes, LOL #UX, and thank you so much. Sure. Absolutely. So I'm going to jump right in with the first question that we got. Let me see if Anybody else? Nope. Okay, so I don't have any other questions yet. I have one that came in earlier today through the anonymous universe. So let's put that one up. And of course, this is always a conversation. If you have advice for the person with the question, you are ready to, you are welcome. I don't know if you're ready. You're welcome to add it. So here's what the question looks like. It's a bit of a long one, and it was a multi-part one. I started reading it earlier. And it says, I'm part of a very small UX team in a big company, though, that is only a year and a half old. We're working on an internal product. The primary users are my colleagues. So that's an enterprise UX adventure. There's been progress in us interviewing our stakeholders and users rather than just building whatever they request. Yay! But we're still working small feature by small feature and not on a strategy or big vision level. 2 questions. How do you get to that strategy level when your discipline is new to the company? Generally, would you approach research and design in a different way when it's an internal product with internal users? What amazing timing for this question, because I was just writing about this type of thing in the book that I'm working on. I think many of you know I'm working on a book. I hope it'll be ready in November, if not December. We'll also add the question on the screen as our next question. Thanks for asking, LinkedIn user. And let's see. Okay, sorry, I've got weird stuff coming in, but it's not from you. Sorry, I'm checking my email because some of the questions come in by email. One woman show, juggling the plates. Okay, so let's talk about the second question first, because the first one's a little more complicated. So, would you approach research and design in a different way when it's an internal product with internal users? Not necessarily. We do have shows on enterprise UX. Just go to YouTube and write Delta CX Enterprise, and I'm sure you'll get, I think we did maybe 2 shows on it. You'll see Stephanie Walter as our guest. She's great and has a lot of great advice, so check that out. Also, we did an office hours with Trina Moore-Perval. Perval? I always pronounce her last name wrong. I'm so sorry, Trina. If you're here, give me a phonetic thing. Hi, Manuel. And her background is enterprise, and she was taking live questions like on today, and she had some interesting perspectives. So, no, to me, research and design is mostly the same in that we still have to research with our users. We still have to understand, let's roll it out, people, contexts, and systems. We have to understand our users, their needs, their behaviors, how they do things now, what's inefficient for them, what are their needs and priorities. Stephanie Walter reminds us that very often an enterprise user wants efficiency more than anything else. They sometimes don't care if it's pretty. They sometimes don't care if it's branded. They sometimes don't care about this and that, the way that we dress things up for our external customers. They just want it to be fast and easy to use because their productivity depends on it. So I would say for internal products, focus a little bit more on efficiency and productivity. And yes, you can still worry about visual design and aesthetics, but it's probably not your target audience's first priority, but you can learn that. So do I research and design differently? No, it just means that when it comes time for research or usability testing, you're meeting your coworkers or people who work at your company, and you still have to ask good questions. You can't ask crappy questions. YouTube watcher has a question. Let's add that to the end of the list. Still have to ask good questions, still have to do good research, still have to analyze it. You know, there isn't a big difference here. If you're going to do usability testing, you are grabbing these coworkers. Hopefully there's enough coworkers that you can grab a fresh set with each round of usability testing. So there are some differences for enterprise UX, but it's not like, oh my God, UX is completely different. UX and research and design look nothing like what we normally do. I would say they're still pretty close. Now, Raphael, I think there's a question somewhere in here. It's a long comment, so I'm going to paste it at the end and we'll take a look at it. You are now question 4 and I'm still on question 1. because question one had two questions. So going back to the other half of the question, and I hear this so often that I'm writing it into my book, which is we have no overarching strategy. We don't have a vision. We're just making things. And that's a common problem. Now, you could say, gee, UX is new, so maybe it doesn't totally make sense for us to have developed this strategy. Well, first of all, as soon as you have UX people, you can be strategic about UX. You don't have to wait for anybody to give you permission. You can go ahead and prioritize work and plan work and try to be part of that conversation. We're supposed to be equals with product and engineering, but not everybody got that memo. But ultimately, even if UX is not equal and not in a strong place and relatively new to the company, where's the product strategy? There should still be product strategy. And really, research should feed product strategy. If we did better research, then we would say, aha, here are some of the key problems, blockers, inefficiencies, struggles that our coworkers have using this system. Let's prioritize these problems, and now we're starting to have a strategy. Now we know what we're going to work on in what order because we've prioritized stuff based on people's real needs. When we're not doing that type of upfront or generative research, a lot of times it's either guesses or it's, we should make this feature, this would be neat, or I think people need this, or our competitor had this. When I worked at that company, we had this thing, so we should do that here too. And we don't have strategy. So ultimately, if you should probably try working with your product manager and your engineering lead and say, hey, look, we're acting a little bit like a feature factory. We're piecing things together, but we don't have the big picture. And if you have any examples of when this has caused a problem, like, oh no, we had to go back and do work, we were inefficient, we built something for the now when we didn't really see what was coming later, and we had to do some redesign and engineering had to do some rework. Whenever you can show that there is wasted time and money, sometimes you can get your own company's attention because they're a business. They do not care about empathy and delight. They want to see money made, money saved. So you would need to be able to find maybe a past project and be able to say, hey, remember when we all built this feature because it seemed cool, but then this other feature came along and we had to rebuild this one because we really didn't have a longer term plan? We should have a longer term plan. And if people say, well, that's not agile and that's not lean, they're actually wrong. I know you're not going to be able to say to them, you're wrong, but that's actually not true. There's nothing in agile or lean that says you can't have a medium or longer term plan. Some flavors of agile have program managers. So you have your projects, and then kind of a level above that, you have programs, which are like groups of projects, and those people have to be strategic across projects. That's part of some flavors of agile. So there's nothing wrong with planning and having a strategy. What's the strategy here? What problems are we solving? And I think when people start looking at products or features first as problems that we're solving, that's where you can make a shift. But remember, if you're not a manager or leader, you might not be able to make a shift. If you can't change the way this company works, it's not you. You didn't break it, you can't fix it, but you can still try. You can still try talking to them about being focused on end user problems, prioritizing those, and coming up with strategies and plans based on what we can create or improve for people in the order that matters to the users. So that's what I would say. If you have any follow-up questions, let me know. Janice says, super interesting about enterprises looking for efficiency and less about visuals. Sounds accurate and makes sense. Yeah, but again, always check with your particular company. Maybe you have people super hung up on visuals, but in general, the enterprise people have to use this software. They have no choice. They can't choose a competitor. This is the software the company is building for its own internal teams. You have to use it, so it should be good. There's no reason it should be bad. And when people say, oh, we don't really have to do good UX, it's just stuff our coworkers use, I say, let's go walk over to their desk. You're going to look them in the eye and you're going to tell them, I don't care if you work efficiently. I don't care if you're productive. I'm just going to build whatever and you have to use it. And, see if you get punched in the face. Janice says, I imagine observational research and optimizing user task flows would be super helpful, especially for enterprise work. Yes, I would certainly recommend all of our videos on task analysis that are in the micro lessons playlist. So, people watching can certainly check that out too. People new to the show, we have over 600 hours of content on YouTube. If there's something on your mind, you can always go to YouTube and write Delta, CX, and a couple of keywords and see what comes up. You might find hours of stuff, and of course, it's YouTube, so it's all free. Okay, let's put up our next question, which came in through the chat. Madalena says the task analysis playlist is a gold mine. Yes, thank you. That's in the micro lessons playlist. Okay, what would you say is a clear path for moving from junior to mid to senior and above? Well, I'm not sure there's one true path. A lot of companies do it differently. Some companies tend to promote people after a certain amount of time. Hey, you've been a junior for 2 years, you should now be mid-level. Hey, you've been mid-level for 2 years, you should probably be senior. Some are looking at time, and that's one dimension, certainly. Sometimes companies ask your manager if they have what's sometimes called a competency matrix. A competency matrix or something along those lines is usually some sort of document that says, this is what we expect you to be able to do at a junior level. This is what we expect you to do at a mid-level. This is what we expect you to do at a senior level. And it's kind of spelled out. And that way you can kind of see, where do you think you fit? Are you still junior? Are you mid-level? Are you something else? Now, don't rush to be senior. A lot of people who are in their first year of UX are like, when can I be a senior? Partially because senior sounds cool, partially because senior makes more money, but do not rush into higher levels because people are going to expect a lot more from you and you just might not be ready for it. So for example, sometimes people expect seniors and leads and higher to mentor juniors. If you're kind of still starting out yourself, you're probably not the right person to mentor a junior. Oh, hi, Adis. How have you been? You're still working at, was it Amazon? How's your world going? It could be about how long you've been working in that level. It could be how you match up to the company's particular competency matrix. I like to look for 4 things, which I'm calling my CATE assessment or CATE matrix, CATE. Now let me see if I can remember them. I know A is attention to detail. Oh, C is critical thinking. A is attention to detail. T is technical excellence. And E is evidence-based. So that's kind of my framework for how I judge a UX worker of any type. So are you using critical thinking? Yes, no, how much, how often, how well? Or do you have good attention to detail? We have to have attention to detail, whether this is your research questions or this is your designs or something else. You've got to, you're getting a breather. Good. Attention to detail is important, and I look for that. I think consistency also goes with that as well. Sometimes people say, hey, that UX designer's kind of sloppy. Their spacing isn't always consistent. Attention to detail. Technical excellence is how well do you utilize foundational principles, best practices. How are you applying your UX knowledge? And E is evidence-based, which is wherever possible, are you working from previous research that either you did or somebody else did? Or, if you're a researcher, then that doesn't apply. That's more for a designer. But are you using good evidence and data to support the designs that you're doing or the copy that you're writing or anything that comes after research? Or are you just making something you like? Are you guessing? So these are some things I'm looking for, and the extent to which you can do those things well usually tells me junior, mid-level, senior, etc. Part of that is going to be years of experience. Very often, even if someone is doing a really nice job and they have 2 years of experience, I would still think of them as mid-level. I wouldn't say, wow, you're doing really nice work, I'm going to make you a senior. I tend to think of senior as 5 years plus because it really tells people senior. It's got kind of the expertise built in. And so I don't like to rush into giving people titles too early. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have a follow-up question. Our next question says, what advice or tips would you give to a person before starting their first UX research role at a big company? Well, if you got the job, sorry, everyone's sending me messages right now. Thank you. If you got the, I watched your episode with Julia DeBari. Y'all talked a little bit about the agents. Oh, this is a question. Okay, let's add your question to the end, and then I can explain the agency model. A good question. You're right. We kind of acted like people knew what that was. Okay, question on the screen. Oops, this side. What advice or tips would you give before starting your first job? I'm assuming then you got the job and you're just waiting to start. The best advice for anybody starting a new job, research or otherwise, is ask lots of questions. Don't show up and try to act like I'm the shit. I know what's going on. I'm too cool for school. I've had a few people from our community say, oh man, we just hired this intern and they're acting like they know everything, and when we try to give them feedback to improve their work, they act like I don't need that, I'm pretty good at this. So make sure that you are not that person. Make sure that you are a low ego action hero. Make sure you are asking questions, especially if people know it's your first job. They're going to expect you to ask questions. If they treat you like crap because you're asking questions, you're probably not going to stay there for long. So make sure that you have a buddy. If they don't assign you one, see if there's a senior person, researcher, and if there's no other researcher, designer, someone you can connect with who can help guide you to who do I talk to about this and where do I learn more about how our company does this? Because some companies onboard very well and some companies onboard terribly or not at all. And you show up and you're like, what do I do and how? Make sure you read all the documentation thoroughly. They will send you long documents about how the company does things. Don't skim them. Don't breeze through it. Don't pretend you know. Read every word. If you really want to do it right, and especially if you're working from home and nobody can hear you, read it out loud. Make yourself say it. Make yourself hear it. Then you're not going to skim it and skip over it. You're going to stop and read it and hear it. So asking questions and reading the documentation and jumping in on things. Sometimes people come here and ask me questions and they say, hey, it's my second month at my new job and I don't have very much to do. And I go, why not? Go make up a project for yourself. If you don't have anything to do, why are you waiting for somebody to come up with something? Go for it. Go talk to somebody and say, you know, I don't have a lot of work right now. It would be really interesting for me to come up with a 3-week study to learn more about how our customers perceive our prices. Whatever the hell. Do something. Don't do nothing and wait for someone to tell you what to do. If someone has told you what to do, then work on that. If not, be proactive. So yeah, those are some of the things that I would recommend for first job. All right, we've got a long question from Raphael. Let's put it back up. Okay, and we have another question from Janice. Also, Janice is full of delicious questions today. Okay. All right. Raphael's question says, oh, let me pull it up at a font size I can read. I applied as a user research intern at a pretty huge company, and I was called in for an interview. The hiring manager on the phone, hey Chukudi, the hiring manager on the phone said she was also interested in my prototype skills, so they'll be sending me a design challenge. They're also open for a visual designer intern position, so I was wondering if this is a good thing or a reddish flag. Feels like I'm interviewing for the visual designer position rather than what I applied for. Deliberately, as I want to avoid jumping into visual design at this point. I'll tackle the design challenge and do my best. Okay, I think there's a question in there about red flag. And YouTube Watcher has another question. Thank you for that. We'll add that to the end after some Janice questions. So Raphael, I think it's not necessarily a red flag. Sometimes companies get distracted. They get excited. They're thinking, oh, you could be our research intern, but wait a minute, your prototyping looks pretty good. And hey, wait a minute, we need a visual designer too. In general, I try to tell people, stay away from these jobs that are mixing too many things if you can. Oh, hi, Shannon. How's it going? Because it's going to be really hard for you to do any of them well and thoroughly. You're always going to be bouncing to something else. Hey, where's your research work? But I was working on the visual design you asked me to do. Well, get on the research. Okay, I'm doing the research. But where's your prototype? But I'm doing the research. So be careful of these jobs that try to combine too many things. Chances are you're going to feel like you're not doing any of them well. I think there's nothing wrong with going back to the recruiter and saying, I'm happy to tackle the design challenge, but I would like to bring us back to my original application, which was for the user research intern. I really would strongly prefer to come in for user research. I'm specifically looking to not work in visual design right now. You could also turn down the design challenge. You could say, thank you so much for appreciating my prototyping work and my visual design work, but I'm specifically looking to transition away from that and to focus on user research, which is why I applied for your user research internship. Is that position still available? So I think it's okay to find gentle ways to try to refocus that person on why you applied, because it could be a red flag, or it could just be that they got a little distracted and excited at seeing some of your work that they liked. So I don't want to say it's automatically bad news. I don't know enough, but I think if you really have your heart set on user research, try to find a gentle way to bring that person back to that thing, thank you for offering me the design challenge for the visual design intern and for liking my prototyping work. That's kind of my second choice. I applied for the user research intern, and I would prefer to interview for that and see that process through and only look at the designer internship if I'm not selected for the research one. Something like that. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions. All right, let's go over to some Janice questions. Oop. Font size larger. Okay, Janice says, I watched your episode with Julia DeBari recently, and y'all talked a little bit about the agency model. Can you explain what that entails? So, not knowing which show that was, but thinking it was probably episode 129, which I recommend highly to everybody, which is questions you should ask during job interviews so that you can be sure you're going into the environment that you want. So, the agency model is typically what it's called when UX exists in a company but isn't necessarily assigned or embedded to a particular team. So for example, when I worked at Macy's, my first project there, I was completely 100% on the innovation and experimentation team. It was just our job to come up with new interesting things that the Macy's mobile app could do. And so I was completely dedicated to that team. I spent all my time with that team, and that was my world. And so that's a little bit more of an embedded model where I am with these people all the way. On some Macy's projects, we had a little bit more of the agency model where it was kind of like Sometimes I'm working with this team and sometimes I'm working with this team. It's almost like I'm from an outside agency and I'm helping out. So I'm not full-time on one project, immersed in that project, embedded with that team, always working with that team on that thing. It's kind of like almost like I'm an internal freelancer. Like, yeah, I'm going to spend 50% of my time on the makeup project, and I'm going to spend 50% of my time on the search results project, and I'm almost like an internal freelancer. So, do you answer questions about design projects? Yes, but it depends what they are. I'm not going to do your project for you, which I have been asked. So try it, Terrence. Let's see what your question is. Janice, does that make sense? So the agency model is when the UX team almost acts like internal freelancers and they kind of get put on a project, but either partially or extremely temporarily, and then they kind of come off that project and they get put somewhere else. And that's one way to do it, but very often UX ends up being treated almost like temporary workers. They don't always bond with the team. The team doesn't always take them seriously. They get thrown off the team as soon as their work is done because nobody wants to budget for them. Whereas it's very different. When I'm officially part of the team, nobody acts like, I don't want to budget for Debbie. You are budgeting for Debbie because Debbie's officially part of your team. So the agency model is common, especially when UX teams are smaller and you're like an internal freelancer. But eventually, many people seem to think, not all, some people love the agency model, but some people seem to feel like, yeah, a more mature organization has enough UX people to put them more permanently on projects and teams. Victoria, I see your question. It's a good one that we get often. I'm going to add it to the end of the list. There's a couple of questions before you. All right. Let's go to the next question. Have you ever worked on a government contract project? If so, what was that experience like? If not, do you have an idea of what it's like doing UX for non-business orgs? So the only government contracting that I've done has been training. Some government agencies have brought me in to write training for them, to record video training, to deliver live training. I think I have only done government projects that were training. I don't think I've done a government project that was a more traditional UX project, like we're going to research or we're going to design. Janice says, do you think the agency model contributes to UX being laid off first over other roles? No, I think people misunderstanding UX makes us laid off first. Agency model or not. So Terrence says it's long-winded. I may private message you later if it's okay. Okay. Or you can also, if you're in our Slack community, by the way, our Slack and Discord are free. Just go to deltacx.com/links to join. We have a new channel in both Slack and Discord called Mentorship Village. And that's where we try to give people advice on fake and practice projects. It's hard to give you advice on real projects because chances are your real project for a real job is confidential. But if you're doing a fake or practice or school or learning project, join Slack or Discord and go to the Mentorship Village channel and look for help there. Maybe that'll help. Oh, Anushi has a question. Let's throw that one on the list as well. Okay, so where was I? What's up on the screen? Government contracting. Yeah, I think that the main difference that I hear from people who have done government contracting is sometimes they go with the lowest bidder, so it's not always the highest quality company being chosen. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's lowest bidder based on whatever their policies are. And sometimes the projects are very order takery. Like, okay, you're doing a project for the U.S. Census Bureau, and they need a revised website so that they can have people fill out these these forms for this information, and we need the forms to say this, and we need the database to do this. And sometimes UX people don't feel like they can be particularly creative or problem solving on that project. Sometimes there's no research. Sometimes there's not even usability testing, though there should be at least that, because very often these government jobs are very order takery because the government has already pre-decided what they need. We need a website that's going to collect this information from people, or we need a website where people can come and upload this document so that we can process this information. And you're like, all right, I guess we've decided what this is. So my impression is that government work isn't bad, but government work can be very in the box. It's not going to be out of the box thinking. It's not going to be innovative and disruptive. It's sometimes not even particularly creative, but again, it varies, but that's the general impression I have of government work for America. Probably a good person to ask would be Dr. Nick, because he does a huge amount, I'm under the impression, of government work for the UK. And you can see what his impressions are. Alrighty, this is Office Hours. Ask me anything. I'm always here every Tuesday, except when I'm on vacation, doing this, 6:30 p.m. Italy time. Please subscribe over on the YouTube channel. We're coming up on 6,000 subscribers completely organically, which is really exciting. So if you know other people who are in UX or hoping to get into UX and they wish they had some questions answered live for free, make sure you're sending them here. Okay, we've got a question that says, I believe the project I'm going to be starting on is in the discovery phase, and they want me to kick everything off. How would you recommend me to go about this in the best way? Okay, who did we get that from? YouTube Watcher. So, YouTube Watcher, remind me, are you a researcher? I have to scroll back. Yes, this is first UXR role at a big company. Sunflower seed. I see your question. We'll add it to the end. There's a few questions before you. And Raphael, we will add your question to the end in order of appearance. Okay. So I think YouTube Watcher, my first question is there anybody at this company who's going to be guiding you or training you? Are you the only researcher there? You should have a senior or lead or manager who can help you. They should understand that this is your first UX research job and you're going to need help and oversight and training and coaching. If they're not offering you that, then you're right. Your best bet might be me on a Tuesday, but I really wish that you're going into a company that has openly told you and promised you support, so that, I mean, because honestly, if everyone's job supported them, I wouldn't need to run a Tuesday show answering your questions. So I'll do what I can. So in general, kicking off discovery phase would probably start with speaking to your cross-functional team, speaking to your stakeholders. I'm the only researcher. Another researcher will come in February. That's tough because it sounds like you're new to all of this and you really need that support. So yikes, good luck. Yeah, I would be starting with speaking with the cross-functionals team, speaking with stakeholders, and learning what unanswered questions they have. What do they wonder about potential or current users? What are their guesses or assumptions? What are things they think they know about users or customers, but maybe that information is wrong or outdated? Collect all of that. Then you'll need to plan your research. We do planning both in the micro lessons playlist and in the Think Out Loud playlist. So you need to plan your research. But really, to me, the kickoff are either a meeting to collect some of those things from people, or at my last job, I saw someone do kind of an asynchronous Miro board. Like, hey, everybody, I'm putting up this Miro board. It's got spaces for unanswered questions, guesses and assumptions, information you have that you're not sure is still true or could be outdated, and anything else you wish you knew about our users or customers or target audiences, their behaviors, their perspectives. Then you go and you plan the research. And you can always circle back and show people that plan and make sure it seems to be addressing the things that they brought up. But remember, they shouldn't be writing your questions. They shouldn't be planning the research or doing the research or things like that. So you want to make sure that you don't give up your power fast. That's going to really change the vibe of your job if you start acting like, I'm the researcher, but so is everybody else. So, you want to try to find a gentle way to, especially if people are creating crappy questions, you want to find a way to say, okay, that's an interesting question. I'll reword it so it fits more into good UX research practices. So those are some of the things that I would be doing to be kicking off. Remember that discovery phase is all about discovering. It's not about asking people, do you like this idea? It's not about showing them a prototype. That is an evaluative phase. So discovery phase should really just be learning more about people, contexts, and systems. People's behaviors, people's unmet needs, inefficiencies, things like that. So that's where I would be focused. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. Next question was, I think, Victoria. So let's put that one up. Thank you for your patience. I like to give everybody complete answers, but it takes a while. Victoria says, I hear a lot of advice to take volunteer work to get my foot in the door for UX research positions. Maybe Janice would like to talk about that. Is it unrealistic to get my foot in the door with a more general product design position, or would that take me too far away from UX research? It seems there's many more early career roles in product design than UX research. Okay, so lots of stuff going on in this question. First of all, there definitely are more early career roles in product design than UX research. Very often those roles do not include research. So if you were hoping to do research, taking a product design position is a great way to take a product design position, but it is not necessarily a great way to do any research work. You're not guaranteed that you will do any research work at all. You might do no generative research. You might not even do evaluative research, especially if it's at these startups. These startups don't like to wait for anything. They don't want to even see usability testing sometimes. They just want you to design it, and they're just going to release it to the public, which is always misguided, but there you go. So I would say don't work in product design unless you'd like to work in product design. If you feel like I'm not really a designer, I really want to be a researcher, why take a product design job? You might get your foot in a door, but now you've gotten your foot in a door of something that might not be research at all. Now you're going to be building up a portfolio of not research, and then how are you going to get the next research job? You may not have necessarily helped yourself. So if there is a product design job that you think you want and can do, you should be asking lots of questions in that interview about what research you will be given the time and resources to do. Do we do early research? Does engineering wait for early research to be done, whether it's generative, discovery, exploratory, whatever we want to call it? Do we do usability testing? When we have designs and prototypes, do we usability test them to find UX bugs before engineering codes them? This will give you a real early look at whether or not this company does anything that could be called research at all, or if it's just going to be make us some screens, make us more screens. So be careful of that. As for volunteer work, I find that most volunteer work sounds like utter garbage. I noticed Janice is suspiciously quiet. Be careful. Some people, not necessarily Janice, but some of the people in the community do tell me behind the scenes about some of their volunteer work. It sounds disorganized. It often sounds like it's not UX research. Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. Very often they tell me they don't even have a senior or a lead who can guide them and look at their work and help them and coach them. So I'm like, well, then what the hell was the point of that? You just showed up and guessed and walked away. So be careful, and be picky, because not everything right now is a great idea. Not everything right now is a good use of your time. So think about what's right for you, your goals, and your career path. Sure, you can take a product design job if you really want to be a researcher. Just remember, you're going to be building up your product design work and portfolio, and you may or may not be doing any research. And if the company acts like, well, maybe next year we can start doing research, I would take that as a no. Don't take that as a, well, they said that next year I could do research. Chances are it's a no. So just be careful. Janice says, LOL, volunteer work is hard, takes dedication and learning the hard way. Janice wins for euphemism soup. Thank you, Janice. Sorry I called on you. All right. Now we had something from Anushi. So let's put that up on the screen. Not sure if this has been covered. I feel like everything's been covered, but go ahead. Why does UX research have such few entry-level positions? How would you advise getting that first UX job after pivoting from 4 years in a marketing career? LOL, the confetti. Yeah, actually, this is my confetti. The other one is, I like to call it my dreamy stars whenever I say empathy. Empathy. So, yeah. Speaking of volunteer work, I'm doing a research project for a nonprofit. I'm planning to interview some clients to get their feedback as part of the initial research. However, a mentor outside the nonprofit I talked to recently said to do an NPS survey to save time. Now I don't know if my gut feeling to do qualitative research is right. Can I do both? Oh, this ended up a question. Okay, so I need the more you know star, but with empathy. I thought about that. So I don't know if I should pronounce you Frenchly, Chianim, or if maybe Hebrewly, Chianim. I don't know how to do that. But I'm going to add your question to the end of the list because it turned out to be a question. I thought it was going to be a comment. So sorry, we're moving you to the end of the list because that's a question. And Larry Marine says, instead of volunteer work, offer a product review for a startup. They like free work. You can limit it to an hour. You can do a little research. It can be real work. Adi says, so much ambiguity in UX, even at big mature companies. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, says the person who just has been working at Amazon. So where were we in the world of questions? What's this one? Okay, so how do you pivot from 4 years in marketing? First, by recognizing that your marketing stuff might not translate to UX. So depending upon what's in your portfolio, someone might look at this and go, this person's pretty good at marketing or market research, but it's not really UX research. I've had a handful of people send me their market research portfolios in the last couple of months, and the work really didn't look like UX research to me at all. Now, that doesn't mean that no market research ever looks like UX research. It just happened to be these in particular. So number one is be careful. Your work might not translate directly. You might be thinking, hey, I did this market or marketing research. I can do UX research. And I might look at it, or Larry or someone else might be like, not the same thing. So number one, be careful. Number two, if you're not necessarily job ready because you were just hoping your existing work would translate, then ultimately your path is going to be more education and practice first. Now, this is where my advice falls apart because I don't have a good recommendation on UX education. So far, everybody sucks. I don't like any of the boot camps. I don't like any of the courses. The only course that looks like it's worth half its weight in platinum would be Michelle Ronson's Curiosity Tank course, but that's over $4,000, and not everybody has $4,000, though I wish you all did because I hear good things about her course. So the problem is that you're just left, unfortunately, to trying to piece together the best material that you can find. But I would say you can always send me your portfolio. There should be a link on this page, deltacx.com/links. I do one free portfolio review per person. After that, I charge for future ones, but you can get one for free. I do them on Saturdays. And you're not there. I record a video and send it to you. The video does not go on YouTube. And I can take a look at your portfolio and I can tell you if it says to me someone who's ready for a UX junior job or not ready, and why. Larry says you can meet startups at startup meetings near you. Very true. Okay. Next question. Oh, this was Sunflower or whatever that person's name is. Sunflower, do we know you by another name? Sometimes people have fake YouTube and Discord names, and I know you, but I don't know that I know you. Oh no, I forgot to look for anonymous questions. All of you people sending anonymous questions. Okay, we have 2 anonymous questions that came in. I'm so sorry. I'll fit you in next because I forgot. So let's go with Sunflowers. Was it Sunflower? Sunflower's question? Sunflower Seed. Sunflower Seed says, I saw an interesting LinkedIn post by Juan Ramirez, product design lead at Netflix, stating that designers are a luxury and software engineers a necessity. Why do our own people downplay our work? Excellent question. You can always send that link in for Friday Critical Thinking stream and we'll tear it to pieces. But absolutely, this is something that I've been saying for quite some time and I'll continue to say. Every single one of you that has the question of where is my job, where is my training, why was I first to be laid off, where's my entry-level job, almost every question y'all have that isn't work specific, that is where is answered right here, right now by this. Because people who claim to be leaders in UX tell people that UX isn't really important. Engineers are important. UX, nah, you don't really need them. As long as we have so-called leaders undoing our own profession, and many of you know I put Jared Spool on that list, I put Jeff Gotthelf on that list. As long as we have pseudo-leaders who are out there making it sound like anybody can do our work, just democratize everything, anybody can be a researcher, a designer, everybody's a designer, we should help them be better, just train product managers to do some UX work, all of these people are the reason you can't get a job. So let's stop pressing like on these people. Let's stop paying for their shit. Let's stop raising them up and augmenting them. I gain or lose nothing if you press like on their stuff. But every time you press like on their stuff, you are helping spread the word that ends up being a wacky Rube Goldberg device. Does everybody know what that is? That eventually means you might not have a job. A lot of you can't get an entry-level job because companies are saying, why should we hire entry-level UX people? We'll just train product managers. Or they listen to Juan Ramirez and say, we don't really need UX people. UX people are a luxury and we don't have money for luxury right now. Or they listen to Safe Agile, who originally had UX required in Safe Agile, but then they realized 60% of their clients didn't have UX professionals and they were worried if they demanded that UX be part of that, people wouldn't use Safe Agile. So Safe Agile took out UX professionals. Yep. Larry says, stop responding in any way to their posts on LinkedIn or Twitter. Yeah, don't raise them up. Don't press like, don't press heart, don't retweet, don't respond. When you respond, you bump it in the algorithm. Elena says, look at the companies who keep pushing for democratized research. They're the ones selling user research platform seats. The more seats they fill, the more money they make. Yes, Elena, totally right. In fact, I wrote a Medium article on that about how research tools are selling us out because they're writing blog posts about how you want everybody to do research. And of course, then you have to buy more seats from them. Now, they could easily say, you need more researchers. You need more qualified researchers to do research, and you need seats for your collaborators. That would be fine. They don't have to sell us out to sell more seats, but they've decided to sell us out to sell more seats. That's why we need to do the critical thinking and pay attention to what people are really saying and doing. Sunflower Seed, you can only post, I think, 200 characters to YouTube, so it's probably not going to come up, but you can always send it to, if you go to deltacx.com/links, send the LinkedIn link in for Critical Thinking stream, and we'll read it on air on Friday, and we'll rip it to pieces. I'm going to stay late today to make sure that everybody's questions are answered, but we don't have time for any more questions, even though YouTube Watcher asked one last question, so we have 4 more questions questions today, which means we're going to run really late, but I'm going to answer all 4 questions. Oh, shoot. And then we have the 2 that people sent in anonymously. Okay, we're going to run really late today. If anybody can't stay, this will be archived on the YouTube channel. You can always watch it later. You can watch it at 2x if you want. I'm going to stay until every question is answered. I owe you that. And I don't have a call after this, so I don't have to run. I see 3 questions. I'm so sorry. Some of them are from a half hour ago. I'm really sorry. Let's get one of them up on the screen right now. All right. So anonymous question says, hold on, I have to do a little copy and paste magic from the anonymous question system. Larry says, I'm hoping my book will elevate the science of UX. These UX snake oil salespeople will look like idiots. They are idiots. All right. Thanks, Raphael. You're the second best. So this question says, have you ever done a content audit or inventory? If yes, do you have any suggestions on how to approach it without losing your mind, especially on a terrible, confusing website? I also have a super specific question. Would you happen to know how you are supposed to treat different versions of the same page from a hierarchical point of view? Like if you are logged in or change some stuff on a page, I can't find any in-depth information about this topic. I feel like all sources you find are just giving super general steps on how to do something and call it the ultimate guide. Sorry, I'm ranting. Any help is appreciated. Okay. So the bad news is this question is really far from my specialties. So I am not going to have a good answer for you, but I am going to try to tell you who to talk to because it isn't me. I'm not a specialist in content stuff and content auditing. I've seen some content audits. They're in Excel and they can get very complicated. I did one content audit in like 2013, so I'm definitely the wrong person to talk to. Definitely look up the previous show we did on content design. So go to YouTube, Delta CX Content Design. Look that up. There were 2 or 3 wonderful guests. I think 2 people. I don't think we had 3. I think we had 2 people plus me. They were super. And one of them, I think, had an online community. Watch that episode, track down that person and her online community, and talk to those people. They're going to know the answer. Some of you also know the, what is it called? The UX Writing Hub. I wonder if that online community might be helpful since content audits are sometimes adjacent to writing. But I would look for any Slacks, Discords, online communities, Facebook groups about content strategy and that kind of thing, because unfortunately it's not my specialty, so I am the wrong person to answer this, and I'm going to stop there. But I am going to go to another anonymous question that I missed earlier. This was from 28 minutes ago, so I'm racked with guilt. Hold on. First, I forgot to paste this question into what will end up being the YouTube description. And then we'll get back to the other questions that came in. There were 3 other questions, and I didn't forget you. We're just going to stay late, and we're going to get to all of them eventually. If you've asked a question, I will get to it. This one says... Sorry, I'm flipping between so many windows it would make you all dizzy. All right. This one says, for user interviews, what are better ways of understanding motivations and goals than asking, what was the reason behind behavior, or what are your expectations with behavior? I think those are 2 questions I don't ask. Larry, jump in on this one. I don't usually ask, why did you do that? What was the reason behind this behavior? I think if you do not ask that very gently and in a well-worded way, you can make people feel very judged and scrutinized. You know, like if I do something and you go, why'd you click on that? I might read into your tone. I might read into your words. So you have to make sure you're finding some really gentle ways. Now, understanding motivations and goals could just come from observing. We don't necessarily have to, unless you can't figure out what someone is trying to do. If you watch them conduct a task or a workflow and you can't figure out their goal, or their motivation to achieve that goal, I guess you could ask. But my question is, if you're watching them do a task, how are you not knowing what their goal is or what motivates them to complete that goal? So I'm not sure that these are necessarily questions we have to say out loud, but more things we should be watching for. Or what are your expectations with behavior? Usually we're asking about expectations if people try to click something that doesn't work in the prototype, and people go, oh, I'm clicking on this. Go, oh yeah, we didn't build that part of the prototype. What did you expect to happen? That's usually when I'm asking that. Yeah, so Larry says, I noticed you did X. What made you decide to try that? And then you can let them answer that. And then once you know that, you can ask a follow-up question of, I don't know if I would say, did it meet your expectations? It implies that they maybe were conscious of their expectations. Maybe I might ask them, how did that work for you? Or how did that go? Because maybe it didn't work for them. How did that go for you? And just try to throw them a very general question like that. So I would say motivations and goals are better to be observed than asked about. And expectations might be something you can notice, but can also be asked if asked carefully. Vicky says, what is a UX audit? Larry says, did it do what you expected it to do? I am so out of time for questions, but a UX audit is typically when someone is looking at an existing website, app, or system and making screenshots or notes about things that seem to be going right or wrong in the user experience from the auditor's expert point of view, and sometimes they use heuristics and other guidelines for that. Let me go to the other anonymous question from 13 minutes ago that I forgot. I'm sending it again. Oh, okay, sorry. You were just realizing I never saw it. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so now we can get back to the chat room questions. And is a UX audit like a heuristic evaluation? It can be. My audits are usually part heuristics and part other things. I'm looking at if the content makes sense to the user or is likely to be, the information architecture, the visual hierarchy. So I'm looking at a lot more stuff. I am out of time for questions, Vicky. Is this one burning or can it wait for next week? I'm already really late and I still have more questions. All right, this was a question from earlier. We'll put this one up. What is a good amount of questions to ask at the end of the interview? Just have a couple, or 5 to 6, or go with the flow? And is it appropriate to have these questions on paper with me? This one is strange because it implies that the best interviewing is based on a number of questions. And as for go with the flow, sure, you can ask spontaneous questions you might have related to what you watched people do or heard them say, but do you have a plan? Do you have a discussion guide or protocol? Do you have a, it doesn't have to be a hard script, but do you have a sense of what you're asking people and why you're asking them? Do you have clear research goals? So I would say there isn't a certain amount of questions to ask at the end. Are you asking the questions you need to ask to get the information you need to satisfy your research goals? If that's one question, cool. If that's 6 questions, make sure you've left time for it. So yeah, it's not about, and yeah, your questions should always be on paper. Your whole discussion guide should be printed out and in front of you and something you've rehearsed. So yes, I kind of don't understand this question, so sorry. Larry says, yes, have questions printed out. It shows you've thought about this. Janice says, gotta head out. Thanks for asking. I'll watch it later. Okay, thanks. Okay, we have a portfolio resume question. This says, for portfolios and resumes, how do you quantify impact to business goals for discovery research when the product hasn't been launched or prototyped yet? So typically, this is more likely to be anecdotal than hard numbers. It's unlikely to say, thanks to our discovery research, we sold 10% more things. It's going to be hard to connect the research done at the way beginning of the project with some of these outcomes way at the end. But you can speak to other areas of impact. Remember, the business cares about time and money, pretty much exclusively. Did something in your research save time? Did you find that maybe some of the ideas we had weren't going to be going in the right direction? Did you find that we were going to waste money on a bad idea? Did you find that something we thought we knew about our target audience turned out to be not true about our target audience? We had a question earlier about, the NPS one is coming up. Okay, just wanted to make sure I didn't lose that question. So it's going to be hard to quantify it exactly. It's going to be hard to say, thanks to the 20 people I spoke to at the beginning of the project, we made $40,000 more. It's going to be really hard. So look for things that helped internal efficiency. Look for things that saved the company from risk or mistakes. That's some of the impact that you're having. Did the research, insights, and data and evidence get used later to guide product strategy, designs, and other things so that people better understood the users and made a better product for it? Maybe we saved some time or some money on that. That's still impact. Larry says, even if something hasn't been built, you can share that your research found something that creates a new opportunity or competitive advantage. Right. And you might say, hey, thanks to this research, we learned that while we were focused over here on this problem people had, they also have this really interesting problem here that we haven't addressed yet. This is a fantastic future opportunity that can help differentiate our product or help us leap past competitors or whatever, but it probably won't be quantified. That's the bad news. Okay, and then we had this one. What Debbie said, because of what Larry said. Okay. Speaking of volunteer work, I'm doing a research project for a nonprofit as a volunteer right now. I'm planning to interview some clients one-on-one to get their feedback as part of initial research. However, a mentor outside the nonprofit I talked to recently said do an NPS survey to save time. Now I don't know if my gut feeling to do qualitative research is right. Can or should I do both? So one question I would have here is, let's stop and think critically about it. What's your research goals for the one-on-one interviews? What do you expect to learn? How will that information be used? Now take the NPS survey. What is your goal that we could learn from an NPS survey? How will that information be used later? Can information from an NPS survey be used for UX strategy, product strategy, prioritization of work? How will information from the NPS survey influence us? Will we understand who, what, where, why, when, how? Will we understand our target audience's unmet needs or perspectives? So I am not a fan of NPS. Many marketing companies or marketing departments will use NPS because they like to take people's temperature generally and say, oh, look, we have this score. But ultimately, NPS is a score of people self-assessing whether or not they might someday in the future recommend you to someone else. That's not a measurement of loyalty. That's not a measurement of satisfaction. And it's not intended to be deep qualitative behavioral research. It's not discovery. It's not exploratory. It's not generative. I would say you need a new mentor. I believe, if I may be judgmental and blunt, I believe this is very poor advice. It sounds like this person goes for speed over quality. A survey is always faster than one-on-one interviews, but is almost always garbage. My gut feeling is qualitative will get much more information for what the goals are. You are correct. So I would say there isn't a good reason to do an NPS survey. It's something that UX almost never does. It's typically something marketing does because they want to see, ooh, how likely are our customers to recommend us to someone else? And that score somehow implies happiness and loyalty when it really doesn't. So, I would say the one-on-one interviews are the best way to go. Be very careful about your goals. Be very careful about the questions you're writing. Am I the only one who can't hear? Did my sound die? Hello? I know you're all delayed 30 seconds or so. I'll take a drink. Sound looks on to me. Okay, thanks. So yeah, I know I'm going a bit long on this one, but I would say, no. I pretty much never do NPS. I'm generally against NPS, and the only time I'm vaguely okay with NPS is if the marketing department's doing NPS, then I'll use that to say, ooh, our score is -10. Do we know why? Not do we guess why. Not do we assume why. Have we done the follow-up qualitative research to understand why we have the NPS score that we do? And the mentor might think that whatever comments people write in the survey box is going to be enough, but you can't compare what people take the time to type into a survey box over having a conversation with a human. They're just not the same. So I am, shall I say, suspicious of your mentor. That is a speed over quality approach. I wonder if this person has a background in marketing and not UX. Because that is probably not advice that a UX researcher would give you. Thank you for the clarification and confirmation. You're welcome. So we are running super late. Thanks to everybody who stayed late. If you want to send in more questions, I'm going to have to save them for next week. We are just beyond out of time. Larry says, to a kid with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Shanim says, ADP list mentor, and you know, ADP list mentors are like any other mentor. They can be very hit and miss. I find they are generally more miss than hit, and you should just go look them up on LinkedIn and see what their background is. If they do not have years of being a specialized UX researcher, I would not ask them UX research questions. If you are going to use an ADP list or other mentor, make sure you are asking them questions in their wheelhouse. For example, you don't want to ask me questions about content auditing and content strategy. You can try, but I'm weak at that, so I'm not going to have a good answer for you. You don't want to ask a UI designer about information architecture if they have not done information architecture work for years. A mentor is only as good as the expertise that they can share with you. If this person If as far as this person knows is NPS and surveys, and that's their idea of research, I would pick a different mentor to ask my research questions. All right. So let's take a quick look at this week's schedule. You can always find it at deltacx.com/links. Don't forget to subscribe here on the channel. We're coming up on 6,000 subscribers. Tomorrow we have a show with Grace, one of our own low ego action heroes, and she has created a PowerPoint she's going to share called Examining User Interface Frictions Through Design Fundamentals. And it looked interesting, so I agreed to a show. So let's check it out. Of course, Friday will be critical thinking stream. I hope to get Juan's post. LinkedIn messages aren't showing up. Thank you for the video. Oh, LinkedIn messages stopped showing up. Not sure what happened there, but thanks for switching over to YouTube. One of the many reasons why I say best to subscribe on YouTube. You can get into the archive more easily, and it's always a better stream than the LinkedIn stream. one of these companies is investing more in a video platform. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks to everybody for a fun and interesting show. Great to see Larry here and lots of our other regulars. Terrence, don't forget to send me that question or join the mentorship village and put it there. And follow me everywhere. Okay, well, not too closely. And yeah, hope to see everybody in our Slack or Discord, which you can find at deltacx.com/links. They're completely free. There's no charge to be in there, and you can be as active or not active as you like. People tend to come and go there, and that's totally fine. All right, everybody, have a good day or evening, whatever you're up to, and I guess I'll catch y'all tomorrow. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are